The anniversary party was everything my parents had dreamed of when they first married 35 years ago. The Crystal Gardens ballroom sparkled under cascading chandeliers, filled with 200 guests celebrating Robert and Margaret Thompson's journey from a struggling young couple to pillars of the community. Dad had built Thompson Financial Group from a single office into a regional powerhouse, while Mom had climbed the ranks to become chief operating officer at the city's largest hospital. I sat at table 12, strategically positioned near the back where I could observe without drawing attention. For the past 7 years, I had perfected the art of being invisible at family gatherings. While my siblings commanded center stage with their accomplishments, I remained the enigma who somehow never quite measured up to Thompson family standards. "Ladies and gentlemen," my brother Marcus announced from the podium, his voice carrying across the ballroom with practiced authority. At 32, Marcus was everything my parents had hoped for in a firstborn son. Harvard MBA, senior partner at Goldman Sachs, married to a Stanford-educated surgeon, father to 2 perfectly behaved children who attended elite private schools. "Tonight we celebrate not just my parents' marriage, but their incredible legacy," Marcus continued. "Dad built a financial empire that manages over $2 billion in assets. Mom revolutionized hospital operations, saving countless lives through improved efficiency. They taught their children that success comes through dedication, traditional values, and proven career paths." The crowd applauded enthusiastically. I noticed several guests turning to look at me, and I knew what was coming next. My sister Jessica followed their example perfectly. Marcus gestured toward our middle sibling. Chief resident at Mass General, published researcher, engaged to another brilliant surgeon. She represents everything our family values about professional excellence. Jessica beamed from the head table, stunning in her designer gown, her engagement ring catching the light. She had always been the golden child who could do no wrong, the daughter who exceeded every expectation our parents set. And then, Marcus paused, his smile becoming slightly strained, "we have our youngest sister, Emma." The applause died down, replaced by that familiar uncomfortable silence that followed any mention of my name at family events. At 28 I was the Thompson family's great disappointment. The daughter who had turned down Harvard Business School to pursue what my family generously called her little art projects. "Emma has always been creative," Marcus continued diplomatically. "She's chosen a different path, working in what she calls digital media. We keep hoping she'll eventually join the real business world." I maintained my practiced smile while inwardly cringing. For 7 years, I had let my family believe I was struggling to make it as a freelance graphic designer. I lived in a converted loft in the Arts District, wore vintage clothes instead of designer suits, and drove a beat-up Volkswagen that I deliberately kept running long past its prime. Every family gathering followed the same script: subtle suggestions about real careers, concerned discussions about my financial future, and gentle pressure to consider returning to school for an MBA. What they didn't know was that my little art projects had evolved into Phoenix Creative Media, a digital marketing and content creation empire that generated over $3 billion in annual revenue. We weren't just an advertising agency, we were the hidden force behind the most successful product launches, political campaigns, and brand transformations of the past decade. Our AI-driven content algorithms had revolutionized how companies connected with consumers, and our predictive marketing models could turn unknown products into cultural phenomena virtually overnight. But tonight, like every family gathering, I was just Emma the disappointment. The dinner continued with the usual parade of family friends approaching our table to congratulate my parents and siblings while offering me sympathetic smiles and vague encouragements about finding my path. Mrs. Whitman from the country club patted my hand and whispered, "Don't worry, dear, not everyone needs to be a high achiever." Mr. Patterson from Dad's golf foursome suggested I consider administrative work since I was good with computers. The breaking point came during dessert, when Uncle James, Dad's younger brother and a successful real estate developer, decided to stage what I could only describe as a family intervention. "Emma," Uncle James began loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "I've been thinking about your situation and I have a proposal." My stomach dropped. Uncle James was notorious for his blunt assessments and unsolicited career advice. He had built Harrison Properties into one of the most successful commercial real estate firms in the region, and he never let anyone forget it. "James, maybe this isn't the time," Mom tried to intervene. but Uncle James was already in full swing. "Nonsense, Margaret. The girl needs guidance." He turned to face me directly. "Emma, you're 28 years old. You can't spend your whole life playing around with art projects and expecting other people to take care of you." The conversations at surrounding tables began to quiet down as Uncle James's voice carried across the room. I could feel dozens of pairs of eyes turning in our direction. Marcus seized the opportunity to join the intervention. "Uncle James is right, Emma. It's time to face reality. You've been living in this fantasy world for 7 years, pretending that making little websites and graphics is somehow equivalent to building a real career." "I have job openings at my firm," Uncle James announced. "Entry-level positions in property management. Real work, steady income, benefits, opportunities for advancement. It's time you learned what actual responsibility looks like." Jessica nodded supportively. "Emma, we're all concerned about your future. You can't rely on Mom and Dad forever." The intervention was gaining momentum, and I realized that half the ballroom was now watching our family drama unfold. Dad looked uncomfortable but didn't disagree. Mom was wringing her hands nervously. Several family friends were leaning in to catch every word. "The truth is," Marcus continued, his voice taking on that condescending tone I knew so well, "you're embarrassing this family. People ask us about your career, and what are we supposed to say? That our little sister makes flyers for local coffee shops? That she's nearly 30 and still hasn't figured out how to be a functioning adult?" Uncle James raised his wine glass as if making a toast. "So here's my proposition, Emma. Time to get a real job like the rest of us. I'll start you at $40,000 a year, which is more than you're probably making now with your little hobby projects." The entire table erupted in approving murmurs. Several nearby guests nodded their agreement. I could practically hear them thinking that it was about time someone gave me a reality check. That's when I calmly reached into my purse and pulled out the latest issue of Forbes magazine. The table fell silent as I placed the magazine face up on the white tablecloth. The cover featured a striking photo of me in a sharp business suit, standing in front of the Phoenix Creative Media headquarters with the city skyline behind me. The headline read in bold letters, "The Hidden Billionaire: How 28-year-old Emma Thompson Built a $3.8 billion Media Empire in Secret." Uncle James's wine glass stopped halfway to his lips. Marcus's face went completely white. Jessica leaned forward to get a better look, her mouth falling open in shock. "Actually," I said quietly, "I already have a real job." The silence spread outward from our table like ripples in a pond. Nearby guests were craning their necks to see what had caused such a dramatic reaction from the Thompson family table. Mom was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "Emma, is this real?" I opened the magazine to the featured article, which included a 6-page spread detailing Phoenix Creative Media's rise to prominence. The photos showed our headquarters building, our creative teams at work, and charts illustrating our company's explosive growth trajectory. Phoenix Creative Media is the largest independently owned digital marketing company in North America, I explained calmly. We employ over 8,000 people across 12 countries. Our client roster includes Fortune 100 companies, major entertainment studios, and 3 of the last 4 presidential campaigns. Dad leaned over to read the article, his face a mixture of shock and confusion. "It says here that your company generated $3.8 billion in revenue last year." "That's correct," I confirmed. "This year we're projected to reach $4.2 billion. We've been growing at about 30% annually for the past 5 years." Uncle James was still staring at the magazine cover, his wine glass forgotten in his hand. "But Emma, how is this possible? You live in that little apartment, you drive that old car." "I live modestly because I believe in reinvesting profits into innovation and employee benefits," I replied. "Phoenix Creative Media offers full health care, unlimited vacation time, profit-sharing bonuses, and comprehensive parental leave. We've been named one of the best places to work in America for 3 consecutive years." Marcus found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak. "But Emma, you never said anything. You let us think you were struggling." For the first time that evening, I allowed some emotion to creep into my voice. "I let you think that because every time I tried to share what I was actually working on, you dismissed it as little art projects and hobby work. You had already decided that success only looked one way, your way." The article included a timeline of Phoenix Creative Media's major milestones. The Obama campaign's social media strategy that helped secure the youth vote. The product launch that turned an unknown startup into a billion-dollar company in 18 months. The rebranding campaign that saved a failing retail chain and created 50,000 jobs. "Look at this," Jessica whispered, pointing to a section of the article. "It says you've revolutionized political campaigning, that your algorithms can predict voter behavior with 93% accuracy." I nodded. "We've worked on campaigns in 37 countries. Our data models help candidates connect with voters more effectively, and our content strategies have increased voter turnout in underserved communities by an average of 40%. The ballroom had gone almost completely quiet now, as word spread through the crowd that something extraordinary was happening at the Thompson family table. I could see people at other tables whispering and pointing, trying to figure out what had caused such a commotion. "There's more," I continued, flipping to another section of the article. "We've donated over $200 million to arts education programs in underserved schools. We provide free digital marketing services to nonprofits working on social justice issues. And we've created a scholarship program that sent over 3,000 students to college." Uncle James slowly set down his wine glass, his hand shaking slightly. "Emma, I need to apologize. We all do. The truth is," I continued, looking around the table at my family members, "I've been financially supporting several family members without you knowing it. Marcus, when your investment portfolio lost 60% of its value during the market crash, who do you think provided the anonymous bailout that saved your house?" Marcus's face went ashen. "The Morrison Investment Group. That was you?" "That was me," I confirmed. "Jessica, your medical research grant that allowed you to complete your residency at Mass General. That funding came from the Phoenix Foundation." Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. "The anonymous donor who funded my entire research project was me," I finished. "And Dad, when Thompson Financial Group was struggling to compete with the larger firms, who do you think designed your digital transformation strategy? Your website, your client portal, your social media presence. All of that was created by Phoenix Creative Media. We did it for free because I wanted to help you succeed." Dad was staring at the magazine article, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Emma, this says that Forbes estimates your personal net worth at $2.1 billion. "Forbes is conservative," I replied. "The actual number is closer to $2.4 billion, but I don't really focus on personal wealth. The company's success is more important than individual accumulation." The silence at our table was deafening. 200 guests continued their conversations, unaware that they were witnessing one of the most dramatic family revelations any of them would ever see. Mom finally spoke, her voice trembling with emotion. "Emma, why didn't you tell us? Why let us worry about your future? Why let us think you needed our help?" I looked around the table at the family members who had spent 7 years making me feel inadequate, who had just attempted a public intervention to force me into a $40,000 entry-level job. The same people who were now staring at me with a mixture of awe, embarrassment, and something that looked suspiciously like calculations about how this revelation might benefit them. "Because," I said quietly, "you never asked about my work because you'd already decided it wasn't worth asking about. You saw the clothes I wore and the car I drove and assumed that meant I was failing. You measured my worth by your standards instead of trying to understand what I was actually building." I stood up from the table and gathered my purse. "I love this family, which is why I've been supporting you in ways you never knew about. But I can't continue pretending to be less than I am just to make you comfortable with your assumptions about success." As I prepared to leave, Uncle James called out, "Emma, wait. What happens now?" I turned back to address the table one final time. "Now you know the truth. What you do with that information is up to you. If you're interested in learning about what I actually do, in understanding the company I've built and the work we're doing to change the world, then we can have real conversations. But if you just want to treat me differently because you've suddenly discovered I'm wealthy, then nothing has really changed." I walked toward the ballroom exit, leaving behind the Forbes magazine and the shocked silence of my family. Tomorrow I had a company to run, innovations to create, and a world to change through the power of strategic communication. Some disappointments, it turns out, are just success stories that nobody bothered to read.